What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Stop Interviewing, Start Selling. I'm your host, Philip Meyer. I feel like I do this every single time I start a podcast episode. I have to apologize to everybody for not doing an episode for a very, very long time. But the life of an outside salesperson requires a lot of demand, a lot of stress, a lot of time. And it's also really tough to get in touch with people that I really want to talk to because they're very successful. Case in point, we got Chris Brewer, CEO of River City Logistics. We've been trying to do this for a long time, and I know both our lives have just been super crazy. But dude, thank you so much for your patience. Welcome to the show. How's everything going for you?
Good, Philip. Hey, appreciate you having me. Number one, anytime that like-minded salespeople can get together, it's generally really electric. So I'm pretty pumped to be on the show with you. And to your point too, I mean, we've got little kids, man. We're also trying to be as successful as salespeople and business people as we can. So, no need to apologize, especially on my end. I'm just pumped to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate that. So you and I met back when we used to work at Artist Packaging, right? We were both outside sales reps at the time. And I don't know about you, but like I learned a lot of valuable lessons having gone through a couple different sales companies and seeing different sales training processes. And one of the things I kind of wanted to ask you and kind of get you on the show for was, what did you learn from that experience being an outside sales rep, having a quota, having all this stress, all this demand? What did that give to you as far as running your own company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think having come from a very high-powered inside sales rep role, moving to the outside, it was a completely different selling style. I think the biggest thing that I was able to take away from being an outside sales rep is really kind of managing your time well. And then as salespeople, we should automatically be intrinsically motivated to want to be successful, right? Because at the end of the day, our paycheck depends on the fact of whether or not we make deals and make friends and create long-lasting partnerships and relationships. And so having to kind of juggle that autonomy of, I've got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and get after it before everybody else is, versus some days you wake up and you just might not have that. And when you're an outside sales rep and you've been through that road, and even if you just done it for a couple months or 8 months, I think I did it, you develop a different set of skills. It really makes you a different, more polished seller, I think.
Yeah, like I think that's something too that, like you said, a good point there, and that's like an intrinsic need to want to be successful. And I think, as just from my own standpoint, because I can't speak to other reps except for the people that like I've met before and that maybe haven't made it in certain companies, it's really interesting because like I'll see people on LinkedIn a lot, and I'll connect with people that like will join UniFirst, or that they'll join some other company, and you'll see like the average tenure of a sales rep, at least within my industry, is like a year and a half. And then once people either get to that point, they either promote out to become a sales manager or a sales trainer or whatever, or they end up leaving, right? And so I think that intrinsic need to want to succeed, I think, is sometimes everybody has that, but I think the ability is kind of what some people lack. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's spot on. I think there's kind of a certain period in a sales professional's career where you can either propel yourself into a different realm and different group of professional salespeople, or you're just kind of ride the wave and kind of fall off a little bit. I think it's difficult to put a timeline on that. If you're not seeing a lot of success, 8, 12, 16, 18 months in, it's difficult to our job is difficult to begin with, right? I mean, we hear no all day long, right? Like if I hear one yes out of 100, especially in logistics, like that's actually not too bad. I mean, I like my success rate to be closer to 8 to 12%, but um, I think there's a really happy sweet spot where you can kind of tell within your own sales ability and your own understanding of, who you are as a salesperson. You can tell kind of early on if you're going to make it, and your peers will tell you and your managers will tell you, right? I grew up an athlete. I played collegiate baseball. I'm not sure if you probably played sports growing up. It's my thing, like now owning my own operation and having, a dozen plus salespeople in our organization is like when the coach stops getting on you and the coach stops harassing you for making mistakes, that's when you should be worried.
Right.
But when the coach is giving you tough love, that there's something within you that he or she can see, and you should feel good about that.
Yeah. And that's such an uncomfortable position to be in too for a lot of people. Like I remember starting my training in martial arts, when I was 7 years old. I mean, back then, like when I was 7, and for those of you watching the show, you don't know how old I am. Don't let the gray hair fool you. I'm not young. Okay. Like I'll be 35 in a couple weeks. So I expect presents from all my listeners and stuff. But yeah, I mean, looking back at it then, like martial arts wasn't as commercialized as it is now, where like everybody gets a belt, everybody gets a trophy for going to a tournament. It was very traditional when I started. And it's an uncomfortable place to be because essentially you're getting like whacked on the leg, by a stick if you come up out of your stance, where you're doing push-ups, you're doing sit-ups, and you're building the foundation to like enable your body to do all these unnatural things like throwing a round kick or a spin hook kick or whatever. But the benefit to that is that when you put yourself in an uncomfortable position, uh, you will grow, right? Like somebody once said to me, I forget who it was, but somebody said that comfort is the enemy of progress. Oh, it was on The Greatest Showman. Hugh Jackman said that. So it wasn't to me; it was to like a whole bunch of people saw the movie. But it's absolutely true. I mean, what you're saying is 100% right. And as salespeople, we put ourselves in an uncomfortable spot every single day, and we can rationalize all we want and say, I'm not going to work until 9 o'clock, or I'm gonna go home at 3 o'clock, or it's Friday, nobody's working today, right? Like it's very easy to do that. But once we get used to not just doing that, but also going back to our sales manager or sales trainers and asking them for straight up advice, like don't worry about my feelings, just tell me what my weaknesses are. That's the only way that we're gonna grow, right? So yeah, awesome point. Also, just a side note, as a CEO yourself, right? For 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 salespeople that say that CEOs, business owners, they don't work on Fridays. Do you work on Fridays, Chris?
I work every Friday. I work every Saturday, every Sunday.
Yep.
I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning if my phone rings. Um, I think was super important, especially kind of building a grassroots campaign. And for any listeners that are curious about our journey, I drove Lyft and Uber for 12 months before I took a paycheck, before I could turn a profit, right?
Wow.
And so my day started at 4:30 in the morning, trying to catch a couple morning rides, drop a couple people off in downtown Sacramento, California, make it back to the apartment, so that my Midwest freight would kick off around 6:30, 7 o'clock Pacific time. So I've been there and I've done it, and the struggle is real. And the struggle's been real up until about a year ago. And right that 3-year mark, where we really kind of felt comfortable with me taking a step back from working on the day-to-day ops, and rather than working in the business, I get to work on it, and I get to work hands-on with my sales team. And sales is a passion, man. I mean, I could just get riled up talking about it for hours, and I love leading my sales team. And I've got a really young group of sellers right now in an industry that's cutthroat. Especially in our industry, the breaking point is 6 to 8 months. If you can make it 6 months selling freight, you probably have a good chance of making it. But you can tell after about 90 days, right? I always tell my people, I can't teach effort, but I can teach you everything that I have here. and everything that I've learned through my experiences, and I've seen a lot. But effort's one thing that cannot be taught. And that's that intrinsic desire to want to be successful that the great salespeople possess.
Right. So that kind of brings me to my next topic that I wanted to ask you about, because I'm sure that as a CEO, you've hired and probably let go some of your fair share of people. But there's this new thing that seems to be going around LinkedIn, the rest of the business world, known as the Great Resignation, right? And from my understanding, from what it sounds like from talking to recruiters and stuff, I'm actually hoping to have a recruiter, shout out to Stacy, by the way, if you're listening, on the show just to talk about specifics of that. But how has that affected your business? How do you feel like you've overcome and kind of like retain people in your company?
That's a great question. And, everybody wants to be cliche and talk about culture. And, we preach it. I mean, we live it every single day. I've got over 50 employees in my organization and we've only been in business for 3.5 years.
Wow.
We've only had 4 people leave. So I think our retention rate is really, really high. We offer an environment that's very loose and very free flowing. You walk into either our Reno, Nevada terminal or hub and location, or you come take a visit in our Midwest operations, which is our headquarters here in Dubuque, Iowa. You've usually got music on a couple different TVs, some sports on one. We watch a bunch of different things. It's just very open and free flowing. And then on top of that, our benefits package is really strong, and we offer people an above market wage. I've compared myself and done a lot of homework to my competitors, and from a starting salary point, we're about 12 to 15% higher than some of the bigger players in our space. And we're a small company, but we put people before profits. I mean, that sounds, some people would say that might be moronic, but at the end of the day, there's plenty of freight to go around for all of us to have a piece in our space. And you're only as good as your people, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this organization is only going to be as good as the people that come in here and work hard and help me build it. And I have this thing. I'd never say that people work for me. I work with my people. I don't have an office. I work on the sales floor still to this day.
That's awesome. So like,
Yeah.
you're kind of more of like a lead from the front kind of guy, right? That's what it sounds like.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like being on the front line, I just remember that scene from Braveheart, Mel Gibson just trotting down the valley there. And that's kind of me. And I love it. And, eventually I think at some point down the road when, we move into a new space, something like that, there'd be an opportunity to have a place where I can go take private phone conversations that shouldn't be out in public and in the open and stuff like that. But as far as getting my people to buy into our vision and what we're preaching and what we're teaching, for them to see the CEO, Chris Brewer, instead of, a CEO that's never present, hides behind the door, doesn't offer assistance. I mean, I'm out there making sales calls with people. I'm doing popcorn round robin sales call hours, and I'm trying to get the most out of my people and make them better salespeople.
Yeah, that's super important. I feel like from just the trends I see on like social media, which is another part of this, right? Because I think one of the things that has contributed to the Great Resignation is not just the fact that people were forced to work from home for like 2 years or whatever with COVID, and that kind of opened up some people's eyes. But I think also what happened is social media has done more than just allow you to take pictures of what you're eating and get liked, and in some cases pay a lot of people a lot of money for taking those pictures, right? Or for like endorsement deals. But I think what it's done for businesses is it's kind of pulled back the curtain, if you will. And it said, there's no more hiding stuff, because now there's Rep Review, there's Glassdoor, there's LinkedIn, which I believe is probably the strongest out of all of those references, because you can actually reach out to people and actually ask them questions about, hey man, what was your experience with this? Like, I see that you actually work directly for this person. I had an interview with this person. That's who I'm talking to. And you can either get, yeah, that guy was great, I just moved on, it's a better opportunity, or absolutely don't do it, that guy's crazy, whatever, right? I've had people reach out to me who have interviewed with previous companies that I was with, and because they saw on my LinkedIn page that was the case, like, and like, yeah, I took their call, I'll tell them the absolute truth about what I went through. So there's no transparency anymore, right? Now, when you say building a winning culture, totally correct. That is kind of a cliche thing to talk about, but when you build a winning culture, like what does that actually mean for people that are maybe don't know that term or have never heard it before?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's a lot of different ways to answer it. But when somebody asks me that question, generally in interviews or press releases, stuff like that, for me, it's I want to win, but not at all costs. I want to be graceful and achieve victory morally. And so I teach all of my people there's a right and a wrong way to A, sell, and to B, conduct business in this space in which we're in logistics, right? It's especially what we do from a third party stance. It's very niche. There's over 22,000 freight brokerages active in the country, and we're amongst the top 150 in 3.5 years. I don't think we got there by accident. I think we just conduct business a little bit clearer with more clarity. And so that starts from the very bottom to the top and from the top to the bottom, right? Because I would never teach anybody who's been under me to lie to an account or a prospect or a customer just to win. Like that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time, especially in logistics. It's so much gray. There's more gray in logistics than there is black and white. But a roundabout way, again, I want to win, but not at all costs. I want to win gracefully, and I want to be humble about it, and I want my people to be humble about it, and I want to see them achieve small victories because they're eventually going to amount to large ones. And then when you teach somebody how to act after a win, the rest is history. That humbleness is hard to find in salespeople.
Yeah. That's very true. You know, I think too, like in some cases, this is just kind of from my own observations of different salespeople talking to them and stuff. But I think like historically, salespeople are also kind of insecure, right? There's a lot of imposter syndrome that goes into salespeople, right? They make a sale and they go, yeah, but that was just luck. I was in the right place at the right time. When in reality, that's really all sales is being in the right place at the right time. And that's where the skill kind of comes into play, right? Because I mean, like I tell reps all the time, like you can go hit 150 doors in a week and you're going to walk into a place that's either a new business, they've never heard of your company or your services before. In which case, if you're the first person in, like it's like, you ever seen the movie Margin Call with Jeremy Irons?
I have not, but I'm going to watch it after this interview. That's for sure.
Dude, I swear, like I advertise that movie all the time, and it's so funny because they're talking about the 2008 2009 housing bubble first, right? And
Okay.
he says, and the thing they're talking about, like, so how do we get rid of all this stuff? How do we get rid of these trades or whatever? And nobody has any answers to him, right? And he finally says, "What if I told you from the very first moment you walked into my office, there's 3 ways to make a living in this business: be first, be smarter, or cheat. Now I don't cheat, and although although I like to think we have some pretty smart people in this room, it sure is a hell of a lot easier to just be first, right?" So like, I looked at that and I was like, "Oh man, he's totally right. If I'm just the first person in the door, and this person has a need for my services, and I just happen to show up at the right time, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get that business because there's no other competition that's working as hard as I am or has made it there before me, right?"
Yeah.
Like, so that's awesome. But yeah, no, I mean, you said something that's really interesting. I kind of want to ask you more about that. You said
Yeah.
teach people how to act after they win. What does that mean exactly?
Yes. So you've been around plenty of salespeople in your career, right?
Yep.
I've seen people garner a little bit of success. Let's just give you an example, right? We hire people in bundles of 4 to 6, and we only hire once per quarter because that 90 days, that first 90 is make or break, right? So we want to give the benefit of the doubt of giving 90 solid days of undivided attention to train people. And you're going to have some people right out the gate catch a little fire, find a little success. You're going to have some people that take a little bit longer to develop and hone in on their craft. But perfect example is, somebody comes in and 8 weeks in, they land a pretty big deal, right? We're talking, a couple $100,000 a year in revenue. That's a pretty big deal in our space, right?
Yeah.
But what do they do after it, right? Yeah, that's the big thing. And that's what we try to teach about being humble. It's like, hey, this is a great win for you, but you can't hang your hat on this because this isn't a forever thing, right? You've got to constantly be adding to your book. And that's what we teach about doing it the right way, right? Like, you don't want to catch a couple victories and then, be the big puffy chested person and you're too big for everybody. I mean, let's just be real. I tend to think that I'm one of the best salespeople in the entire country when it comes to freight brokerages and freight brokers, but I certainly don't act like that. I'm the same person right now with you and your audience and your followers as I am when I call Coca-Cola and Pepsi tomorrow. We're talking some of the biggest in the game. And I have this idea that people just buy from people that they like. You have to find a way to get somebody to, if they're not going to like you, to at least believe what you're telling them, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. What it makes me think of, because you mentioned baseball earlier, and as you were talking about that, I was like, I guess that makes sense, because if you hit a single, you don't want the batter to try to run home and try to make it to second base and third base and run all the way home and try to score. You want them to stay at first, right? If you hit a double, you want to be able to recognize that's only a double and bring it to second, and then be patient, wait for your opportunity to steal third or whatever, and bring it home. Yeah, I mean, that's something I've never heard before, honestly. Like, how to teach somebody what to do after they win. Like, it's always about how do we get to the win, not what comes after. I think that's super important, because like in fighting, there's probably 1,000 other analogies I could use, but like in a sparring tournament, right? If I kick the guy in the head, that's only worth like 3 points, right? Unless I knock him out, in which case I win. But if I kick the dude in the head, I'm not going to go back and like, yeah, got this. And all of a sudden, boom, I get smacked in the face and I end up on the ground, the mat. Now I'm done, right? Like, and in sales, it's so easy to take our foot off the pedal and go, I'm just going to sit back and rest my laurels. I got this big account, like I'm set up for the year, and I don't need anything. Even if that was the case, like most companies out there, they'll still provide you with a salary and with expectations of furthering activity and further growing your book of business. So I mean, that's super profound, Chris. I'm glad that I talked to you just for that purpose, because I'm gonna internalize that, and I hope people listening will also do that too, because that's so important.
Yeah, I think anytime you're around, like I said, like-minded people, salespeople, just the plethora of knowledge and the different philosophies and views that we have on the art of selling. It's an art, man. There's no other way to put it. It is an absolute art.
For sure. I don't know. Hold on one second. My thing is telling me is going to end in 10 minutes. I don't think so. How much time do we have? Oh, it's giving me a countdown. That's okay. I've only got a couple more questions for you here, Chris. And
Yeah,
I'll
for sure, man.
Probably let you go. But tell me, because from like 2018 to 2022, you mentioned you have 55 plus employees, right?
Yes.
What do you attribute that growth to? I mean, obviously to sell is one thing, but then you got to have the service, you got to have the processes and procedures to back everything else up. How did you put that in place?
Yes. So started by myself in 2018. I just had my first child, my daughter, Taylor. She was about 4 months old. And I came home and told my wife that we were going to move her furniture into our room and converted that to my office. And so early on in my days, it was just me. Brought on my business partner. His name is Josh Greenbaum. He's in Reno, Nevada. He's a super sharp guy.
Shout out, Josh. What's up, man?
Yeah, good dude, man. He'll listen to this. He's his wife's 40th birthday, so he's in Southern California. A little bit of work, a little bit of pleasure this weekend.
Nice.
But what really kind of took off for us, and I hate bringing this up as one of the reasons, but I just have to be honest about it. COVID was terrible for a lot of people, right? I mean, it was really bad people lost their lives, people lost their businesses. But what it did for my industry was it created a very even playing field, right? And in our industry, you've got a very top heavy group of people, publicly traded organizations. They started laying off people by the 500s. One company laid off like 2,000 people. Well, guys like me and my organization, we were only like a crew of 7. We were in overtime. We had leads and prospects that wouldn't respond to an email for 6 months, calling us, begging us to help them out, and we were there every single day, and that's what blew us up, right? So all these big companies, these, we call them the blue bloods, the 3-letter giants, they're sending their people at home. They're sitting on their sofa, not waking up till 8, 9 a.m. when, we got 2 or 3 different spare rooms in different cities, Sacramento, Nevada, Iowa, and we're all just plugging away. And it really propelled us. We were able to attain some really big accounts, and we grew them organically. But from a back end perspective, when you talk about the infrastructure of the organization, how did we build it, right? We were very strategic. There was a super good article on Freight Waves, which is like, the newspaper for transportation people, that really kind of talked about brokerages getting to certain plateaus, right? There's a 50 million mark, a 150 million mark, and then so on and so forth. And it was so funny because it was so spot on for us. It said brokerages that reach $50 million in annual revenue, they generally hire their buddies, their family, which that's what we did. I've got 3 of my cousins that are working for me, and they're rock stars. They are extremely talented. A lot of different friends. Once we reached like the dozen to 14 employee mark is when we really started looking outside, and we're just very, very, very picky on who we bring in. We can interview 7 to 10 people and hire 2 because, again, it just goes back to that culture thing. Like, we are looking for a specific mentality with specific abilities, and it's not a knock to the people that don't have those abilities or those qualities. It's just that we know what works and what type of person and employee will come in and kind of work seamless in our organization. And I got to attribute a lot of it to another guy, my director of operations. His name is Nick Lester. We hired him back in July of 2020, and he absolutely just dialed us in and took us to another level.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that you're shouting out all your people too. Shout out to Nick, by the way. That's really amazing to hear, because that was a really tough time for a lot of companies, the company I work for included. And yeah, you're right. Like, I was working a big city, like a municipality account who I tried to penetrate for, I don't know, like 2 years prior to that. And all of a sudden one day I get this phone call like, "Hey, do you guys have sanitizer on hand?" Because that's typically what we sell, like sanitizer, TP, paper towels, as well as uniforms, all that stuff. And I had to tell them, I was like, we don't right now. And if we could get it, it'd be super expensive for you. But it's so crazy, like the timing of that. And there are probably other companies that were probably better equipped, and just the timing was right. Like, and again, it comes back to full circle. Like, if you're in the right place at the right time as an organization, as a company, to be able to help those people to, achieve what they're looking for, that's the secret sauce. There's really nothing else to it, but dude, thank you so much for jumping on. I really appreciate, finally, I'm so sorry it took me so long to get you on the show, man. It's just been super crazy, having 4 kids and a wife who makes many demands. She never listens to my show, so I can say that. But yeah, man, where might be a good place for people to like reach out to you, connect, if they want to be a part of the team, they want to learn more about your company? Where can they find you?
Absolutely. I got a pretty good presence online on LinkedIn. Chris Brewer. You can go to our company LinkedIn profile page, River City Logistics Inc. Our website as well, www.riversaring, a new outside sales force, which I'm super pumped to roll out. We are hiring outside sales reps in Los Angeles, Seattle, Denver, Dallas, Atlanta, and the Northeast. And we're super, super pumped to get that program up and off the ground. But again, man, I appreciate it. Two salespeople talking sales and strategy, man. It doesn't get any better than that for me.
Heck yeah, dude. That's awesome. Well, once again, man, thank you so much. And for those of you listening, thank you for listening. Reach out to Chris, reach out to myself on LinkedIn as well. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, I promise you guys, LinkedIn's not sponsoring me for any of this. By the way, LinkedIn, if you want to, feel free to send me a check. But like, if you don't have a LinkedIn page as a salesperson, as a professional, guys, I'm telling you guys are missing the boat. Get with the times, get out there on LinkedIn, make your connections, follow up with people, reach out to people. Chris, once again, thank you so much, man. And guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. We'll see you guys later on.